Hello students. In this lesson we want to discuss the mammalian circulation system. Mammals have 4-chambered hearts. The right 2 chambers deal with deoxygenated blood, while the left 2 chambers deal with oxygenated blood. Therefore, deoxygenated and oxygenated blood do not mix. The heart pumps blood into arteries. The arteries divide into smaller vessels called arterioles. Each arteriole divides to form a network of capillaries inside the tissues. The capillaries eventually reunite to form venules, which form larger veins called vessels called the veins. Veins take the blood back to the heart. Let us discuss the structure and function of the hearts. First, we shall look at the external structure of the heart. So the heart is a muscular organ located in the chest cavity between the lungs. The two lungs, or the pair of lungs. It pumps the blood to the whole body. Pericardial membrane encloses the heart and secretes a fluid which lubricates the heart when it is working. This fluid secreted by the pericardial membrane is called pericardial fluid. This fluid, we said it lubricates the heart. It also helps to keep the heart in position and checks overstretching of the heart. The heart is also covered with a layer of fat which acts as a shock absorber. The heart is made up of cardiac muscles containing interconnected muscle fibers supplied with blood through the coronary artery. The coronary vein carries blood from the heart muscle to the pulmonary artery, which then takes it to the lungs for oxygenation. The heart muscles are said to be myogenic, that is, they can contract and relax without fatigue. We move to the internal structure of the heart. So we have the vena cava here, which is bringing blood to the heart from all parts of the body. Then the blood enters the heart through this vena cava down to the right auricle. The auricle, then from the right auricle, the blood enters the right ventricle through the tricuspid valve. Then from there, blood is pumped to the lungs for addition of oxygen through the pulmonary artery. From there, blood comes back through the pulmonary vein into the left auricle. Now this is oxygenated blood, then into the left ventricle. You can see there is a separation of the heart. This is what we call the septum. Then the aorta pumps blood to all parts of the body. As you can see, this part of the left ventricle is thick. The wall is thicker than that of the right, so that it can allow the aorta to pump blood to all parts of the body. The heart has 4 chambers, that is 2 auricles, which are the upper chambers, this one, and then the two ventricles, which are the lower chambers, left and right. Then the auricles are thin-walled and smaller in volume than the ventricles. You can see the right auricle receives deoxygenated blood from the body organs except the lungs, while the left receives oxygenated blood from the lungs through the pulmonary vein. The left ventricle and the right side of the heart are separated by a wall so that oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood do not mix, and we've just said it is the septum. Deoxygenated blood from the rest of the body enters the heart through the vena cava. Ventricles have thick cardiac muscles. The walls of the left ventricle is thicker than that of the right ventricle, so that it can generate a high pressure required to take blood to the distant body tissues. The volume of the left ventricle is smaller than that of the right ventricle. The right ventricle pumps blood for a short distance, just to the lungs, hence it has a thin wall. Between the auricles and the ventricle are atrioventricular valves, also known as the cuspid valves, whose role is to prevent the blood from flowing back into the auricles when ventricles contract. On the right side is the tricuspid valve, and on the left side of the heart is the bicuspid valve, supported by tendons or valve tendonae, which prevent the atrioventricular valves from turning inside out when under pressure, that is when ventricles contract. At the base of pulmonary artery and the aorta are cup-like semilunar valves, which are opened by the force of the blood generated by contraction of the ventricles. They prevent the backflow of blood into the ventricles when the ventricles contract. Then we have circulation in the heart. Remember, deoxygenated blood from the body tissues except the lungs enters the right auricle from the vena cava, then to the right ventricle through the tricuspid valve. When the right ventricle contracts, blood from the right ventricle is forced through the semilunar valve through the pulmonary artery to the lungs. That is for oxygenation. The oxygenated blood from the lungs flow through the pulmonary vein to the left ventricle. And blood from the left ventricle is forced to flow out through the semilunar valve through the aorta to all the body tissues. Now we have the pumping mechanism of the heart. The heart undergoes rhythmic contraction, that is the systole, and relaxation, which is diastole. This is what forms the cardiac cycle. We want to look at the diastole, and when ventricular muscles relax, the volume of each ventricle increases as pressure decreases. Contraction of the auricle forces the bicuspid and tricuspid valves to open, allowing deoxygenated blood from the right auricle into the right ventricle, while oxygenated blood flows from the heart or from the left auricle into the left ventricle. Semilunar valves close, therefore preventing the backflow of blood into their tissues. The slight contractions or the small contractions of the auricle force the blood into the ventricles. We move to diastole, and when the ventricles muscles contract, the cuspid valves, which is the tricuspid and bicuspid, close. That means backflow of blood into the auricles is prevented, and the volume of the ventricles decrease as pressure increases. This forces blood out of the heart to the lungs through the semilunar valves and pulmonary artery, and to the body tissues through the semilunar valve and aorta, respectively. At the same time, the auricle is filled or are filled with blood. And we've said before that the left ventricle has thicker muscles than the right ventricle, thus pumps blood for longer distance to their tissues. The heartbeat. Do you know what an heartbeat is? The heart is capable of contracting and relaxing rhythmically without fatigue, or in short, without getting tired, because of its special muscles called the cardiac muscles. The rhythmic contraction of the heart arises from within the heart muscle without stimulation of the nervous system. The contraction is said to be myogenic. The heartbeat is initiated by a pacemaker called the sino-atrial node, abbreviated as SAN, which is located in the right atrium. The wave of excitation spreads over the walls of the auricle after this initiation by sino-atrial node. So this is the sino-atrial node on the right auricle. So that wave has been released, which is picked by the Atroventricular Node, which is here. This Atroventricular Node is located at the junction of the auricles and the ventricle, from where the Purkinje tissue here, you can see the Purkinje tissue, from where the Purkinje tissue spreads the waves to the walls of the ventricles. You can see these waves are being spread towards the walls of the ventricle with the assistance of the Purkinje tissue. Now that the sino-atrial node stimulated a wave which was picked by the Atroventricular node, which is at the junction of the atria and the ventricle. The heart contracts and relaxes rhythmically at an average rate of 72 times per minute. The rate of the heartbeat is increased by the sympathetic nerve, while it is slowed down by the vagus nerve. The heartbeat is also influenced by hormones like adrenaline, which raises the heartbeat, especially in times of danger. This hormone prepares the body for fight and flight, and therefore increasing the heartbeat. So that comes to the end of the lesson, but here is a good assignment for you. Nice time as you attempt.